On the other hand, of course, we have also positive theology. Positive theology means that we are able to say some things about resurrection, to try to understand the anthropological logic of it, or the theological legitimacy of it. And that's what in the tradition has always been produced by people. They have tried to create images, stories, paintings, other pieces of art, movies that deliver us mediations that enable us to relate ourselves to the risen Christ. And in fact, what this PTI has done is delivered you a lot of such mediations to try to understand what it could mean, how it could look like, how we can imagine, how we can experience what resurrection could mean, and what the encounter with the risen Christ could mean in our times and through our culture. And you are invited to look for your own mediations that touches your heart, and in which Christ can enter into your heart, into your life, into your school, into your classroom. The question, of course, is what are good representations and what are to be criticized representations of the risen Christ. And I compare this sometimes with the analogy of playing a musical score. Imagine the scores of the work of Bach or Beethoven. They have been written on paper. They are there and they are fixed. In the same way, you could say that the Gospels are written and the witnesses of the first Christians are fixed. They are there and they are the starting point. You cannot change them, you cannot negotiate with them. That's in fact the starting point. But of course, the scores of Bach and Beethoven need to be interpreted. You need a performance at a certain moment, in a certain time, to bring Bach and Beethoven alive by creating music based on these scores. In the same way, we have to read and reread the gospel narratives about resurrection to bring the story of resurrection alive in our context today. And of course, there is always interpretation. There's also always the active subject that reads the score, that reads the gospel narratives. And only then it comes alive. But this does not imply, of course, that every performance of Bach or Beethoven is of the same quality. And you have better and you have ugly presentations of Bach or Beethoven. And you can evaluate them. Not every interpretation is as good, is as acceptable as another one. But of course you need to take the risk to perform the score to bring the music alive. In the same way we need today to present, to represent, to reread the gospel stories of the resurrection, to bring them alive today. And some are better, and some are rather wrong presentations or representations of the score of the gospel narratives, if you want. And of course the magisterium plays an important role here. And sometimes you see that the church shows preference in the Sixtinian Chapel, for example, for a certain presentation of the resurrection. And at other moments will criticize the Jesus movie, which is not an acceptable representation of the resurrection event. So it's not because there is room for interpretation that every performance of music, or by analogy every expression of faith and resurrection, has the same value. Even if a perfect expression will never be possible. And that's the warning we receive from negative theology. In fact, negative theology is helpful if we insert it in positive theology, and both need each other. We need the story, the interpretation, and the hesitation about the story at the same time.